All right, you may begin, Ms.
All right, so this is the design review committee meeting for June 14th. 2022. And this is to formally advise that as required by Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Sections 18 and 25, and pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, an act relevant to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on June 16, 2021. The design review committee will hold a public hearing at the date and time noted on the notice of meeting, which is now 4 p.m. The public is welcome to attend either in person or via the alternative public access provided on the notice of meeting available on the Town of Yarmouth website. And shall we call for who's here? Do we need to do that?
Everyone's here in person, so we don't need to.
Okay,
They can begin.
so I guess we can, the agenda in terms of topics to be discussed is the formal design review of communication tower continuation from 4/5/22 meeting. Blue Sky Towers the third. LLC applicant doing business as BSTMA third, I guess, LLC. Care of Ricardo M. Souza Esquire, Prince Lowell's Thai LLP, Roman Catholic Bishop of Fall River. Owner. And 44 Route 28 South Yarmouth. Assessor map 50, parcel 189.1. Zoning districts B2, HMOD1 road and VCOD VC3 to be confusing. The applicant is proposing to construct a 110-foot tall monopole communication tower for up to 4 carriers with accessory ground equipment. Supplemental materials have been provided from the 4/5/22 DRC meeting, showing an amended cell tower design to simulate a clock tower and a more detailed alternative siting analysis. And for presentation, we have here apparently.
Rick Sousa. Did you want to begin, Rick?
Yes, I can begin. Good evening, members of the committee. Once again, for the record, Ricardo Souza from Prince Lowell Thai here in Boston, representing the petitioner, Blue Sky Towers. With me tonight is Sean Gormley, who's a program manager for Blue Sky Towers. He'll speak to the alternative sites that we've reviewed and to the supplementary materials that we submitted to the committee relative to that issue. Also, I have the RF engineers for the 2 carriers who are committed to using this proposed site. First, Ryan Monte de Ramos from T-Mobile, and then Sohail Usmani, who works for C Squared and who is the consultant for AT&T Wireless. In the wings, I also have Jesse Moreno from ProTerra, who's the engineering firm that helped develop the updated plans that we also submitted as part of the supplementary materials. And so just so I can start, in response to our first subcommittee meeting, we went back to the drawing board to see what we could do from a design standpoint in order to go away from the standard monopole and propose something that was more perhaps aesthetically pleasing to the committee and perhaps to the community as well, in order that we could simply also achieve the coverage objective that our carrier customers need, i.e. AT&T, T-Mobile, and the other providers that are going to install their equipment on this structure. So we've developed what we think is a good proposal, which is a 3-legged stanchion design that will also serve as a clock tower, essentially. We've provided an image of that clock tower to you so that you can take a look at it. A brief conversation that I've had with Kathy is that the committee may also be interested in perhaps putting clocks on all 3 of the facades. You know, initially we thought maybe just on the Route 28 side, but that's something that we could be open to as well. But what this does is I think it hides the actual infrastructure itself, the monopole, the antennas, the remote radio heads that are installed at the top of the tower and near the antennas. And I think it's a more streamlined design that allows us to achieve our coverage objectives, but also tries to minimize visibility of the infrastructure itself. And so we've submitted that one photo. In addition to that, we've taken the views where you could see the structure from our original photo simulation package, and we've superimposed this same stanchion design into those, I believe it's 3 views where you can see the tower. Excuse me, it's 4 views. And as you can see, it goes from a pretty industrial look to I think a more aesthetically acceptable design. And we wanted to get your thoughts on that, of course. We think this is a step in the right direction, and wanted to get your feedback. And we've also superimposed that same design, sorry, on the zoning drawings that were also submitted as part of the supplementary materials.
All right, somebody got everything and had a chance to go over?
Do you want to give the alternative, do you want to give your full presentation, or do you guys want to break it up? Because I'm assuming there's going to be a discussion on the alternatives analysis as well.
Yeah, there will be, exactly. I'll have Sean Gormley talk about those materials that we submitted, but if you wanted to take one topic, essentially those are the 2 main topics, which is the change in design itself, which I think is the focus of this committee, together with the alternative site analysis, which is how did we arrive at this location versus other potential locations, in response to some of the questions that were posed at the April meeting. It's the committee's pleasure, of course.
Whichever you guys would like. Just to make a note, Steve needs to leave for another meeting at 4:30. We'll still have quorum then, but he may wish to give his comments early in the meeting.
Well, I'll start with this. I think you've done a good job with the design. I like that 3-legged concept.
Okay,
And I would like to see 3 clocks on it. That would be nice. And I think that
sure.
looks good. And I'm happy with that.
Do you have the proposal? Are you able to put that up on the screen as well?
Yes, I can.
That one, right?
It's this one here. It looks like 2, but there's a third leg.
Where's the third leg?
It's back there.
Oh, okay.
But consider this right here, something like this.
Which one do you referring to?
So it's 3-legged like this. This rendering, it makes it look like it has 2 legs. You can see it on the back
Yes.
side,
Yeah.
but it looks like 2, but it is 3 legs.
It's right next to the red picture. The one on the right is what they're proposing. Not the next one over. Yes, the one on the right is what they're proposing. The one on the left was some embellishments I was proposing.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you can see my screen.
Yep, we can.
Okay,
Yep.
great. Yeah, so that's the proposal there. If you look at the plans, it does reflect the 3 legs. You're right. Just to the right is the 3rd leg, just to the right of the 2 legs that you can see. And we can put 3 clocks on there. One of the things that we were thinking about, in response to some of the questions that you had was, you have plans for revitalizing Route 28, and this could be a focal point that people could talk about, meet at the clock tower or whatever reference there is. This could be at least something that draws folks to the area.
Would these,
Go ahead, Joey, go ahead.
would these clocks be operational or just a base clock face?
No, they would be operational. They would have to be, I think. Yeah, that's the only way to do this.
So the antennas that you have proposing would be contained behind the clock tower, behind the clock?
That's right, exactly. So essentially we'll have mounting locations behind these vertical panels, and they will be separated by approximately 10 feet of vertical separation. The first antenna installation will be right behind the clock. The next one will be right below that, and so on. And so all the antennas and the equipment itself will be located, behind the stanchions, behind the material.
In the material that you're going to use for the facade of the clocks? What is that?
Yeah, so that's usually an RF transparent material. Maybe I could ask Sean, do you mind unmuting and talking a little bit about what you know about the material itself?
Yes, hello, how are you today, guys? The material, it's a fiberglass material, so it's RF friendly. So of course, the legs are made out of steel. But that kind of whitish panel you see there is it's made out of fiberglass. So it's RF transparent. And the same is true for the clock itself. It's a special clock that is made by the manufacturer that does that particular tower. And it's allows the RF frequency to go right through the clock and the panel.
Yeah, and Kathy, I apologize. If you could let Jesse Moreno in, who's the engineer, just in case there are any more technical questions regarding the structure itself.
So Jesse?
Jesse Moreno,
Sure.
M-O-R.
Yep.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Other questions, Steve?
Yeah, is
Sure.
one more, right? And then I'd like to.
Yeah, you go ahead, because you
Just talk about.
you're
the,
not doing it yourself.
location. But is there any chance of backlighting, at the tower height?
What do you mean by backlighting? I apologize. Can you flesh that out for me?
Well, any chance of, some illumination of the clock itself?
The numerals and let's say that the numerals in the hands
Thank
I
you.
glow
see.
at night so they can be seen.
I see what you mean.
They can glow if it's, however you guys can do it. That's the idea, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Sean and Jesse, I defer to you if you've seen that before and see if you know if that's a possibility.
I'll be honest with you, I have never heard of that, unless you want to put like a light at the bottom of the tower. However, I'm just not sure if it can be backlit. I just don't know the answer to that question at this time.
Not a critical thing for me if it's not.
No,
It's a good question. I hadn't thought about it.
Yeah.
clock works, right?
That works.
Yeah,
You see it
clock
today.
will work. Yeah, regarding the lighting, it's one of those catch-22. Some people will like it, some people will dislike the fact that it's lit.
The whole tower is a catch-22 at this point.
Yeah, right, exactly. Right. Almost everything in society is these days.
Right, right. So I because I have to go, let me just a couple of things if I could relative
Sure.
to the other materials we submitted. First of all, let me thank you and your team for at least considering some of our comments at the last go around.
Sure.
Especially in terms of trying to disguise or hide or camouflage the antennas. So I appreciate that. I'm sure there's others here that appreciate that too. However, that said, I'm still not convinced this is the best location for this site. And as much as I was pleased with what you submitted as far as disguising the antennas for the tower, I'm not as impressed with what was done in terms of other locations. And again, I feel that you're taking the path of least resistance here. I think there's some other opportunities to pursue, despite the fact that the town hasn't reached out to you. Perhaps you could reach out to the town relative to town-owned property. And I think I suggested at the last meeting that there was some locations or possible locations or potential locations along Buck Island Road. Certainly the fire station, DPW's locations. Someone else brought up 99 Buck Island Road as an alternative. And I understand that there's a process involved in terms of disposing of town-owned property that includes the Board of Selectmen and an eventual vote of town meeting. Notwithstanding that, though, I do think there should be some efforts of outreach to the town administration or the Board of Selectmen on that. To gauge, see if there's some opportunities there. The other thing that really irks me to no end is you send out a certified letter, which is great, but there's never any follow-up. And I think there's some potential sites of these 109 sites that you looked at that could be possible locations. And the final point is, I know there was some outreach from the town administration to the Davenport properties, but and I think there was some outreach from them to you folks, but there was never any conversations going back and forth. So again, I just wish some more effort, Mr. Chairman, would be put forth in terms of looking at other sites as opposed to this one.
Okay. Thank you very much for that input. Charlie?
I feel pretty much the same. I don't feel that enough has been done on finding another location. I don't think the location is coming into the business area and having that. As far as the design is concerned, wherever it might be, I would be in favor of more of a colonial, which is pretty much the second one down on the photo that we have here.
I'm not sure if they've seen that. I had provided them with some examples.
Yeah, so Kathy has got some examples here. Which I guess you provided to them as well.
I'm not sure if I did.
Okay,
I don't think I've seen those. If you could share them.
I can if hang on one second, I'll share.
Sure.
I just, the one that is up on the screen to me is too commercial looking. And it could be a McDonald's on top of that. And I think if it has to be at that location, which I would hope that it would look for another location. I think and no matter where it went in the metropolitan area, I think you need to have it look more colonial. We try to on our buildings that new buildings that are being proposed. There are a lot of things that we don't accept ordinarily as a board because it isn't in line with what Cape Cod is about in our town of Yarmouth. So again, I think like Steve, I think the location needs to be explored a lot more, so that it is not obtrusive to the general public coming by.
okay. Thank you.
If I could ask, with respect to colonial, do you mean the second row from the top? Yeah, there on the left-hand side.
Yeah, something.
Yes.
Do you have any sense of what that looks like below there?
Below?
Yes, below.
Well, obviously
No, this was from this americlock.com. And
Okay,
this seems like they use cell tower clocks and they have different examples.
yeah. I don't know this before, of course, because the first time I've seen it, but my sense is.
I'm sorry, I should have forwarded this to.
Something like that on 3 legs.
Yeah, my sense is
You know?
that that's on top of a building, most likely, is my
It's
sense.
just a cupola on top.
Yeah,
but
That's all.
it would appear size wise that it could be made to encompass your equipment that you have to have at that height level. I don't know the square footage of what it takes to take that type of equipment, because I assume that the better part of what's necessary is down below.
Yes. Okay, understood.
Hey, Rick,
Go to the comment. Yes,
Yeah, go ahead.
this is Sohail Usmani. I wanted to bring in the alternates that were already looked at, and I did meaning AT&T's, on AT&T's behalf, we submitted the coverage plots, including the 99 Buck Island site location, or
right.
the proposed location. That should be part of the exhibits that were submitted. If they're not, then I can share my screen and show where this location is with respect to our proposed location.
Correct. It provides duplicative coverage. It's too far to the west, I believe, but
To the northwest, correct.
northwest, correct. But if you want to share it in order to respond to the first committee members' comment, that would be great. Thank you.
So should I present?
If you could
Sure.
share your screen, that would be great.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to find where it gives me the option to present.
Down on the right, under
Here.
share, the
Here,
green,
speak.
you want the arrow?
Yep.
Oh,
Sure.
okay, yes, I got it.
Share,
Sorry
yeah.
about that.
It's okay.
No worries.
Can you see
Yes,
my
we
screen
can.
now?
We can see it.
Okay. This first slide shows the proposed site location, blue star,
Blue sky, yep, the blue star, yep.
and the first alternate candidate was this base river site at 70 feet, propagated it. Compared to this proposed site at 100 feet, it covers all the way, covers all the gaps, in the green and orange coverage thresholds, which are -83, -93 dBm. This does leave some gaps and, smaller footprint. Even going to the south, if you look here, here's our 99 Buck Island Road Avenue site. This one.
Right.
And as you can see, this is where we need the site, where most of the cellular traffic is coming from, and where the gap is in capacity and coverage. Then we've got the 290 West Yarmouth alternate site, which is here. Again, go back to this slide. There's a Buck Island, and here's but the coverage is now from this site, the pink.
Yeah,
There
Could you
were,
go-
sorry,
Could you go, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Could you go back to the site with the church? There we go, right there. Yeah. So that covers, yeah.
that's our proposed
So
site.
that's the proposed site. So it
Yes, sir.
gets all the coverage down towards
Correct.
the south and over towards the east on Bass River.
Yes, sir.
correct.
Excellent.
And,
So,
and what's unique here is that the coverage objective and the gaps in coverage are shared by T-Mobile and AT&T, and they are along 28 near the church site and to the north and south of 28 as well. And so that's why it's important to know. That's an important factor in why we selected this location rather than going towards Buck Island. As you can see, there's some existing coverage over there. There's some missing gap in coverage, but it's an entirely different part of the town that we're trying to achieve coverage for as part of this application.
And other than these, what do you call alternates? There were some other locations that the town hired RF consultant had provided, and we did provide coverage plots for them as well. And I did run a lot of stats for those locations, as well as different height scenarios. So a lot of material was provided as far as looking at alternate candidates. So I just wanted to bring that in before, gentleman, I think Steve or Steven was before he leaves. I just wanted to bring that in to highlight the fact that, we did provide the information with respect to the alternates.
It's great. Thank you, Sohail. That's very helpful.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to
Thank
stop
you.
sharing.
All right, thank you. Chris, other comments, questions?
no, it makes total sense why it's where it is.
All right,
So I'm okay. I'm fine with that in that location. And three-legged, I've already said my thoughts on that.
So you're okay with the location?
Absolutely. And I couldn't see it going anyplace else. It's the reason it's there is to provide that coverage in that area that's missing. So,
Well, we didn't show the Davenport site. I don't know what the coverage would be there.
Well,
It's not far away, so I don't think it'd be too much different, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very similar. The Davenport site, we can have Sean Gormley talk about that. If I could maybe share a screen, which is the essentially the map of the area that shows green, orange, and red, if you have that in front of you. It's a Google Earth map that was submitted as part of the materials.
What, I think he's talking to us. This is it right here.
Yep.
Yeah, can you pull that up? Yeah,
Is it
There it is.
overall site plan?
Yeah.
There it
You
is.
can see it.
Kathy, how about the tower that we voted on many years ago, that's in back of the post office?
Yes,
That's kind of, out of the way. And
Yep.
is that possible to utilize that area because it has the blocking in front of the commercial buildings?
I think that gets into the conversation of their coverage and their height and the cams and
that's
which is
right.
the field antennas and those needing to be stacked. I'm gonna let them respond to that, but that was also analyzed as part of the Cape Cod Commission DRI process.
That's right. And that was discussed at the DRI process with the Cape Cod Commission. That's a site that's located directly across the street, essentially, at the post office from our proposed site at the church. And that is a cam design, which is very contained. So the spacing within that, call it a faux flagpole, very thick flagpole, simply can't contain today's 5G modern day antennas for us to be able to service our customers and provide all the wireless services that we need. But the biggest factor is that because Verizon's at the top, the available heights that are down below available for would not be able to service the needs for AT&T and T-Mobile. There's just the heights themselves as they are, they're probably pretty deficient for Verizon, and they would be even more deficient for T-Mobile and AT&T. You simply wouldn't get much coverage from that location. But the other factor is that we wouldn't be able to deploy all the types of equipment that we need to be able to provide 5G reliable service to the customers in and around that area. And so that's why we've chosen a different design that allows us to deploy all the equipment that we need for 5G services, but also at the same time hides that equipment as well, much like Verizon did with a CAM design. With respect to this map, I'd like Sean maybe just to talk about the methodology. Sean, if you could come out of mute and maybe speak to the Davenport site first. As you may know, the Davenport companies were sent a letter from BST Management, Blue Sky Towers, on or about June 16, 2021, and there was no response to that letter. In addition to that, they also spoke in opposition to our Cape Cod Commission petition. And so they clearly had an opportunity to reach out to us then. Most recently, after our first meeting with this committee, Kathy did inform me that she happened to be speaking to a representative of Davenport. And this topic came up as to whether or not they would be interested. And I didn't receive a call. So contrary to the statement earlier, but I did speak to Kathy about it and she sent me an email.
I'm sorry, I need to correct that, Rick.
Sure.
I provided the contact information to Jamie Vieira, the vice president, for you to contact them.
Yeah.
And they never heard from you. I did not give him your contact information. I think it was very clear in the email that I sent you in the phone conversation that we had, that the contact information was provided to you to make the reach out.
That's right, exactly. And so very specific to that point, the gentleman on the committee suggested that they reached out to me and I didn't call them back. And that's just not the case.
You did not you contacted Jamie Vieira. You made a phone call to
No,
Jamie.
I did not.
And that's the point.
That's my point. That's right.
No, but I just wanted to clear the record. The record was by a committee member was suggestive that they called us and we didn't call them back. That just didn't happen.
No.
So we've analyzed that location. And Sean, I just want to talk a little bit about why that site was or would not work for this proposal. If you could talk about that site first, and then we'll get into the generalities of the site.
So a site that's like 500 feet away from your site isn't going to work?
Right. Yeah,
Mistake.
it doesn't meet the fall zone requirements.
Okay, can you zoom in and show us that? That would be great.
I'm not sure I can zoom in, but
Well,
Sean,
I
So-
think if you go to another map, you've already zoomed into that area.
I take it the fall zone means where, what it would hit if it falls down?
Exactly.
correct.
You need a
Yeah,
220-foot diameter.
right.
Do you
Sean,
have that from the houses on
They do.
whatchamacallit road there?
They do have that at the.
yeah, we do have the fall zone at the church site. Yeah, the proposed site. Sean, if you could talk a little bit about your review of the Davenport site.
Yes, absolutely. So as mentioned earlier, you can see that R4 property is very thin, and the radius, we would have to meet 120-foot radius to meet the setbacks per the zoning bylaws. We did send, Davenport that letter, like I said, just to see if they would be interested. Back at the time, there were very few larger properties that could accommodate the setbacks, but that we could not fit the correct height tower in that property.
Can you please show that site on the plan? Because
It's
maybe
right-
we're not talking about the same property because it's quite large and so, yeah, can you, if you, next page? So you've done some great blow up work.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Zero in.
My apologies. Yeah.
That's okay. I mean, it's in the upper, it's the R3A as well as the R4, which are both owned by this.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
Right there.
perfect. Thank you. Can you
Yep.
zoom in a little bit?
Let's see if I can.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much.
Sure.
So how do you not have a circle of 220 feet on those two properties?
So the circle that's shown there now, is that a? What's that diameter and is that?
Yeah.
R3A,
110 foot diameter or?
So,
but it's hitting some structures.
yeah, so we have R3A as being owned by Robert Tedeschi.
That is a property that's a combination. If you look at the address is the Davenports and they have part or a full ownership of that property.
Okay, because we have R4 as being owned by Davenport and then R3A and 3B being owned by Robert Tedeschi. And they also received a letter at the same time with no response.
I guess my point is that we've moved beyond the certified mails. And when I talked to Mr. Vieira, who's the vice president at Davenport, he
Yeah.
indicated he would be open to talking. And I asked him if it would be okay for me to send his contact information to you. He said yes, and I did so. And you never contacted them. And now you're saying that you can't put in a 220-foot radius on either of these properties here. And it doesn't seem to make sense to me because you obviously can. So
Yeah,
there's another reason, then there's another reason, but it's not because you can't fit a fall zone on there.
I mean, Kathy, honestly, to be entirely honest, there are so many reasons, right? You have a property owner who didn't respond to us initially when we were looking for viable locations. We have also a property owner who opposed the tower that we were proposing, never contacted us then. We also think that it's also incredibly close to the residences to the north and west, above and beyond that. And I also think there's some challenges relative to siting a tower there. So there are a number of reasons. Once we maybe a year back, that could have been a viable conversation. But once we've gone this far in an application, I don't see that as a viable alternative compared to a site that's not very far away, that meets the setback and fall zone requirements, and that has been already through the Cape Cod Commission with a favorable recommendation. And so there are a lot of reasons why our proposed site is a viable site. I also think it's, we should be careful about the town contacting private property owners in connection with this application. I think the site that's before you is the one that should be judged by this committee and by the boards of the municipality. And I think we should be very careful about just inserting negotiations regarding the viability of a site on a private site.
Yes, but you indicated you were going to be looking at other alternatives. after our design review committee meeting. So when I was talking to Mr. Vieira about something else, I brought this up because you had indicated that you were going to be looking at other alternatives, and that's how it happened. It wasn't just us going around randomly to all these different property owners talking about a cell tower. So it
Yeah,
was very specific.
I'm not suggesting that you did. I fully take you at your word that you were talking to him about another application and this came up. Secondly, what I did say was that I was going to discuss the alternatives that we did look at. This has been a process that's been at least a year for Blue Sky Towers, probably longer. And the purpose of the spreadsheet and also this mapping is to show this committee and the town what other sites we looked at. That's our obligation. It's to show you what are the alternative sites. Not necessarily what alternative sites are we going to look at since the last meeting, but what alternative sites did we look at coming up to the filing of the original application with the Cape Cod Commission.
All right, so I guess we need to be looking at this site. This is the site that has been through the process with the county and that you identified and that we need to deal with, apparently. I'm not sure that this site is any better or worse than the Davenport sites anyways, personally. You know, my feelings are, you know, I'm not excited about the design, you know, in terms of the need and so forth. We all know there's a need to provide the coverage in that area. I don't think this is a bad site relevant to what's there. I'd like to see as much buffer and existing trees, because that's heavily treed right now. I'd like to make sure that those stay there. Apparently you're chopping down one area of it to allow this in there, and I guess that's so be it. You know, 110 feet tall. I would agree with some of my other members that I'm not exactly thrilled with the design. As Charlie said, I think is something that looked more like a clock tower than, I mean, and I'm not seeing the third leg, but boy, you look at that initial picture and all I could think was it was a great big tall sign for a Mercedes dealership or something.
Yes.
And then, Mr. Chairman, there might be some subtleties that we can do to the design to make it perhaps more, you know, less modern, more colonial. Staying with the stanchion, but maybe using a different material with a texture that's different. We're open to those kind of ideas. As long as it's an RF transparent material, I think, you know, we're open to changing the subtleties of the design so that it's less car dealership and more colonial, and more colonial clock.
I mean, every time I look at it, I say, oh, Mercedes. It's got that little hand thing.
Yep.
Is this going to shadow at all any of the surrounding homes? Is that something you can answer? 110 feet and a fairly good sized sign. You know, I'd hate to hear comments from residential neighbors, business neighbors too, I guess. You know, that geez, they got shade on their property now that they didn't used to have, based on the height of this thing.
Right. I mean, given its location.
Pizza.
Yeah, sorry. At least to the north, you have the church, right, and large parking lot.
Yeah.
To the east, you have Route 28, and not necessarily any shadowing there. If
I
any,
guess I'd worry
Totals.
most about the houses on Byron Lane.
right
Behind Tolly's, yeah.
behind it and to the west, right,
Right.
and you will have somewhat of a tree buffer that's going to remain there as well. So.
I take it it's been
Sunrises.
determined that the height of 110 feet is what you have to have.
Yeah, in fact, we've reduced it from 120, which was the original proposal going into the Cape Cod Commission, and we did reduce it down to 110. Every incremental reduction does impact the propagation by each of the carriers, and then also the viability of a third carrier potentially using it as well. So we need to be careful about not reducing it any further.
If
I don't see those homes getting shaded now that if you look right, sun rises from here as we're sitting at the board. Back over to here, if that's northerly, right?
yeah,
So-
the site's to the north, so that would be helpful, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just worried about it sticking out like a sore thumb. And so the more attractive it can look, certainly the better would be my biggest concern. If you have to have the height and you need that location for coverage, and then I guess, it is what it is. But we'd like it to look as uncommercial as possible.
Right.
All I have.
And that photo, on the handout comes as close to, a colonial look as anything, that's been presented.
The
But
cupola,
it has,
the one
it
with
has,
It might be hard to do that. It might be hard to do that particular design, just because it's so tall, and I think he's right, that might be something that's actually on top of like a building.
Yep.
Where it's not all that much taller, so they're just adding a clock to get a little bit more height, and then they're having the cupola on top. Do you mind if I show the plan?
No, that's fine. You should. Yeah.
Thank you.
The reason for 3 legs instead of 4, by the way, is what?
That's a question.
Attractive.
Can you stop?
Is 3 more
stop
attractive
sharing?
than 4? I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe.
Sean, I don't know if you can talk about that, or Jesse.
Just, can you stop sharing for 1 second?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is it?
Thank you.
Rick,
That work? Okay, sorry. Yes,
I
Jesse.
think it's more to do, the 3 faces are probably so that the azimuths can be achieved. It's easier to achieve the sector azimuths
Yeah,
with
that's
3 faces than it is with 4.
That's a very good point.
Why is that? I'm sorry, I didn't understand. Can you
Coverage
say
going
that?
out.
Yeah, so when you look at a tower, any monopole or even a lattice tower, all of the carriers operate their antennas propagating in 3 different directions. And so they're all 3 azimuths. So one antenna points at 90 degrees, another one at 120, and another one at 180. To simplify it, that's just the way all antenna installations are designed. And so that fits well with a 3-legged structure versus a 4-legged structure, just because the legs themselves, because for structural reasons, they will impact the propagation. And so you typically don't want to have the signal coming out of the antenna and going right at a leg, for example.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, Kathy, I see your.
Yeah, this is
Yes,
just
Kathy, go ahead with whatever. you
adding
want to.
some embellishments, and maybe some detailing, and it may impact some of the the lower elevations, but having a more formal cap with some type of trim along it. Maybe the top one is just, I know that they use those kind of slats.
Yes.
Fiberglass slats on top of steeples all the time. So maybe that's kind of your background, and then maybe going down a little bit lower, and that's the one where you have the on it. And then I'm just kind of showing how I like a little bit of gaps versus
Breaking
a
up the
full,
mass, yeah.
versus the full length, because I think that really gives it the full,
Okay.
highway sign look to it.
Yeah, sure. It's
I
great.
did like the 4 legs myself, but I understand why you're saying that the 4 legs aren't possible. And the other thing is the 3 legs that you have, I'm sorry, oriented. The clock's really not visible from any good location, like if you're driving down Route 28. So the orientation of the triangle,
I see what you mean. You want the clock going.
well, some direction. It's kind of like
If one of the poles, if I can see it in my head. You want 2 of the legs to be parallel to it. Let's see.
yeah. Oh, wait a second.
At the closest position to 128, it'd be good if that face was parallel to 28.
Right.
If
Right.
you-
Yeah, that needs to be,
Yeah.
so on your elevation plan A4, yeah, if that's rotated a bit, so one of those legs
Right.
face is at 28, and then the other 2 legs run parallel to 28, then you'd see these 2 faces from
Okay.
either way.
And Sean,
well,
and
the faces
Sean,
were gonna be on all sides, for
3 sides, so if you put
the
one
3 sides.
and one here.
Yeah,
and one
I think
here.
that's a good idea.
Yeah.
And all the landscaping shown on the plan, of course, is part of proposal, obviously.
Yeah. Sean and Jesse, do you think some of these architectural element changes on the left in red are achievable?
I think the one with the gaps, I'm gonna have to check on that, just because of the heights of the antennas. I believe it's possible, but you got to remember each level of antennas has a steel frame around it to hold, there's a platform where the antennas get mounted to. I believe it's possible, but that means we kind of see some of the interior, workings of the or in the antennas itself. But one thing I'd like to ask is the orientation of the legs, because I know that ProTerra did a lot of work to fit the tower in there and to meet setbacks. So I don't know if Jesse can talk to that briefly.
Yeah, I can. There's two things there. Yeah, one, I think the three-legged meets the setback requirement, the way it's set up in there. So it's important. The other thing is, again, the sector, the whole idea of the three sectors. It has to be set up a certain way to allow propagation out of those faces towards the directions where RF wants to propagate their signal. So just turning it, for example, now that means those faces aren't pointing in the direction that RF wants to propagate their antennas. So all of that has to be sort of worked in to the way that it's sitting on the plan.
I just
Right now-
envision people saying, why do you have a clock tower that no one can ever see when you're driving down Route 28?
You shouldn't be looking up, right? You should be looking ahead.
We should look far enough. I mean,
Hmm.
trust me, you're gonna be looking at it from
You'll-
far away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if it can't be turned
I'm
for
not,
that reason,
yeah.
or-
So I assume like the
I mean, that's kind of unfortunate. It should be so you can see it.
Otherwise,
It's
what's
frustrating.
the point?
Frustrating. And on the bottom part, provision is going to be made at a later point to use it for advertising purposes. By
no,
putting signage.
no, no,
Can't
They
legally
don't-
do
they don't
that.
have to-
no.
No,
you
they're
can-
gonna come in
you can-
before us.
Yeah, you can include that as a prohibition.
Yeah, they're not gonna, that would be a variance. That's totally
Yeah.
different. Yeah, they would never get approval for that. I
Okay.
would like to think. But yeah, if you're willing to put a prohibition on that, that's even better.
I would keep in mind too, that remember Route 28 isn't straight. It makes that turn. And as you get farther away from the site, I think the angle that it's shown here actually works well. From a little bit further back. I mean, it's not, like you said, it, depends on where you are relative to where you're looking, but.
So maybe a little tweaking, so you get a little what you need, and maybe we get a little more. Little tweaking,
Tweak it if you can.
throw us a
Yeah,
bone.
we can definitely analyze it, Kathy.
Thank you.
Makes sense. Absolutely. I understand what you're trying to achieve.
All right, other comments? Kathy, do you have anything to add?
I think I've said more than enough.
Never more than enough.
Yeah.
All right.
So we
have
go
to
through
go-
our thingy.
Yeah. All right, so hang on. All right. So we have a bunch of siting strategies and a bunch of building strategies. So we're gonna go through them. I think a lot of them are not
Yeah,
applicable.
most of what's on our cheat sheet is non-applicable.
It's
Okay.
basically meant for buildings, obviously, and typical design and development, not necessarily for a tower. So the streetscape, it's really not applicable because there's no new buildings proposed that would be located adjacent to the roadway to define the streetscape. Does that make sense?
I guess I'd agree. Yeah.
I'm gonna go through and you pipe up if you.
Yeah, if anybody has anything to say on anything, just.
Tenant space, not applicable.
No,
Defining the street edge, it's really kind of not
Not really.
applicable.
No,
Shielding large buildings is not
applicable. How
not applicable. Designing a second story, not applicable.
about a 5th story, 6th story,
And this
a
is
10th story?
using topography to screen the new development. I don't think no amount of topography is going to screen this, and they need to actually have the clear view. So I said not applicable. I think the place where there is some discrepancies is landscape buffers and screening, because it's really impossible to landscape or buffer 110-foot towers.
Yeah.
And, if this location is determined to be the only viable, do you want to say something about this might be a good place to put in something about the design of the tower, or continue to embellish the three-legged clock design based on the comments?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's good place to put it in terms of the hiding it too. I mean, I didn't look really closely, which I should have, at the landscape plan. There are trees planted around the bottom. Do we have a schedule of what kind and so forth?
Yes.
Yeah, and in fact, there was at the Cape Cod Commission, there was a lot of focus on this element to try to not necessarily landscape or hide the tower itself, but the actual compound where the cabinets are at the base.
Right.
As a result of that, we did some enhanced landscape plan of a fenced area. So you'll have 3 different types of evergreen trees, 6 Atlantic white cedar, 4 American holly, 8 eastern red cedar, and then 6 different types of shrubs. 6 rose bay rhododendrons, 5 beach plum, 8 high bush blueberry, 8 new. And I can send these to you,
He has the plan.
I do have it. I looked at it, but I didn't study
my
it.
apologies. Yeah, and so that was.
Okay, and the other 2 sides are heavily wooded, I believe.
Right.
I guess my only other comments on this one, other than, I basically, it's impossible to landscape. If this location is determined, continue to embellish the design of clock tower based on the comments from the design review committee. And also the ground equipment and the transformer should be fully screened with plants large enough to screen the tallest and plants large enough to screen the tallest equipment at initial planting. This is a case where I don't want, the equipment to be 9 feet tall and you're planting 6 foot tall. Let's do it right and just cover it from the get-go. And then none of the existing trees along the north and west, this is for the design review committee. None of the existing trees along the north and west sides of the tower should be allowed to be removed as long as the tower is in place, as these trees provide some landscape buffering and screening.
Correct.
And then replace any dead street trees and install new trees every 20 feet along Route 28 to help define the street edge and buffer the property.
Yeah, that would be great. As long as you're getting this relief, it would be good to get the church property in terms of its buffers. There's a few plantings there, but actually there's a fair number of plantings, but a couple of them have died.
Yeah. It's not too many.
Certainly it'd be good to see that done up as well. And what's here for fencing?
Is it
Yeah.
PVC?
It's a 6-foot stockade fence.
Yeah.
And
The cedar? Is that cedar, Rick?
yes, I
Yeah,
believe.
it can be cedar. It's just a wood stockade. We've had
Oh,
good
sorry.
luck with cedar, but yeah, I mean, if you have a particular, type of wood that you'd like to see, we certainly could do that. We're showing. cedar now.
I think cedar is fine.
Cedar's good.
Is it gonna be a lock to prevent
Yes,
young kids getting behind there?
Looks like it'd be fun to climb.
yes, it's a locked entrance gate. We understand the attractive nuisance problem, so that's a security of that gate is very important to us.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah.
And is
All
that
right,
okay?
continue.
Is that
Yep,
okay?
yeah, that's good.
Parking lot visibility not applicable, breaking up large, it's applicable to the lot you're on, but not applicable to your project. Breaking up large parking areas, not applicable. Locating utilities underground, you're meeting the standards. All your proposed utilities are underground, correct?
Utilities to
underground.
serve the site are underground.
Yep, okay, excellent.
Just one quick point I wanted to make. I didn't know, I just heard that you wanted to maybe supplement some trees along 28. We just need to be careful with that because there is cross-country drainage there. So there are catch basins and like swales in that area. So there are trees there now, but densifying that too much will affect that. So you just need to be careful.
Talking about east of where you are proposing your stormwater elements.
We'll be talking
Yes,
about on
exactly.
Route 28 and Forest Road, actually.
Right, there are swales there and catch basins that are there now.
Well, you may have to figure out exactly where they can and cannot go. It's understandable.
Right.
But that should be filled in my estimation, to as close to zoning requirements as possible.
I could say every 20 feet if possible.
Yeah, I'm just saying there are trees there now. We can certainly densify them, like you're saying, but just, there are catch basins and things there that prevent, you know, need some flexibility.
So we can say install new trees every 20 feet where possible along Route 28 and Forest Road to help define the street edge and buffer the property.
Right.
And I just think when you submit to, I think you've already submitted the application to do site plan review, but
Yes.
incorporating these changes on your plans to the ZBA would be great.
Okay, thanks, Kathy. We will.
Building strategies, I mean, the project does not include any traditional buildings for which the building strategies would typically apply. Do you want to say anything more than that?
I think it's not applicable.
Because then everything was not applicable. Do you want to say anything about? This might be an opportunity. to say
Well, yeah,
anything else
okay,
about
I'm
it.
sorry.
It's up to you guys.
Yeah, anything else you want to say about the design, which I guess would go here in terms of your
If, look at the
uh,
illumination if possible on the clock. And then,
clocks to be illuminated,
again, more,
if possible, certainly no spotlights on the bottom. And to the direction possibly being tweaked to zero in more on 28 if possible.
and then like that hand sketch with the panels that have some separation between them if possible.
And Kathy, if you
I
could
think that was it.
share that with me, that would be great.
I would be happy
Appreciate
to.
it. Thank you.
So, okay, consider illuminating the clock, no spotlights, and consider reorienting 3 legs to have the clock face towards Route 28 and to provide some gaps to the long continuous panels. That sound right?
Yep.
And then everything else was really not applicable.
I push blueberry.
All right, so these also serve as our meeting minutes, so I do a little bit more work.
Okay, understood. Yeah.
So basically Attorney Sousa, representing the applicant, introduced his team. He looked at, they were looking at finding a new aesthetically pleasing design with the needed coverage, included materials showing a 3-sided simulated clock tower to hide the antennas and may include clocks on all 3 sides. Maybe that's one thing you want to put in. He noted the photo simulation at 4 locations and we're looking for feedback from the design review committee. He also noted the revised project plans. Design review committee questions and discussions. Chris Vincent liked the 3-legged concept and would like to see 3 clocks on it. Attorney Sousa also noted this could be a focal point in town. Charlie Adams asked if the clocks were operational. Attorney Sousa said they would be. Steve O'Neill asked if antennas would be behind the clock panels with 10 feet of vertical separation. Clock panels and the materials. I'm sorry, let me fix that. Asked about what, okay, the antennas would be behind the clock panels and the materials for the sides. Attorney Sousa indicated they would be behind the panels using an RF transparent material. Sean Gormley indicated the materials was fiberglass and the legs are made of steel. The clock is a special clock made to allow RF frequency to go through it. Mr. O'Neill asked about backlighting or illuminating the clock. Sean Gormley indicated he was not sure if the clock could be backlit. Mr. O'Neill appreciated the teams trying to work on the design to camouflage the antennas, but not convinced this is the best location and less impressed with the alternatives analysis. He felt they took the path of least resistance and could reach out to the town on town land property and town-owned property, especially along Buck Island Road. He noted the process for disposing of town property includes board of selectmen and vote town meeting. He suggested more outreach to the administration. Mr. O'Neill felt that certified letters need to have follow-up as there are some sites that might be viable, especially the Davenport properties behind the jobs lots. He would like to see more effort at looking at other sites besides this one. Charlie Adams does not feel enough has been done in finding another location as far as the design is concerned. He would be in favor of more of a colonial style, similar to one of the examples attached, middle left, as the design review committee typically looks for Cape Cod style architecture. I'm gonna butcher the name, Mr. Usmani, showed the plot coverages for the areas, including 99 Buck Island Road, which did not cover the area needed. They also looked at other sites and coverage maps and height scenarios as part of the Cape Cod Commission DRI process. Chris Vincent indicated he was okay with the location due to the coverage needs. Charlie Adams asked about the cam across the street at the post office. Attorney Sousa noted that the spacing inside the thick flagpole can't contain modern 5G antennas and provide all the services. Also, Verizon is at the top, so the lower levels would not serve AT&T and T-Mobile needs and wouldn't allow for the 5G coverage, so chose a different design. Attorney Sousa noted that the Davenports received certified mail and spoke in opposition to the DRI. Kathy Williams had provided direct contact information for the Davenports for them to contact them. Sean Gormley noted that they needed to meet the fall zone, didn't think they could meet the fall zones on that property, and Kathy Williams questioned the inability to provide the fall zone. Attorney Sousa felt they had gone far enough in the application and gone through the Cape Cod Commission process with favorable decision. And then Attorney Sousa went through the alternative sites that they reviewed briefly. Dick Martin understands the need for coverage in the area and doesn't think this is a bad site, but would like to see as much buffer as possible as the site is currently heavily wooded. He also felt 110 feet is tall and not thrilled with the design. Something that looks a little bit more like a clock tower, but it looks more like a large sign. Attorney Sousa felt some design standards can be looked at as long as RF transparent material is provided, willing to modify the design. Mr. Martin asked about shadowing of surrounding homes and doesn't want abutters to now have shading on their property due to the height. Attorney Sousa noted it may be an issue to the west and north, but that is where the tree buffering is. Attorney Sousa noted that the height was reduced to 110 feet and every incremental change impacts the viability. Mr. Martin would like to see more attractive design if this location and height is needed. Mr. Usmani noted that the 3 sides is needed for the antenna, as the antenna is located in 3 different directions. So this fits well with the 3-legged versus a 4-legged structure. The 4th leg also impacts transmissions. Kathy Williams shared her version of the design elements, which breaks up the tower to make it less sign-like and to orient the clock faces to be seen from the Route 28 traveling westward. Jesse Moreno said the 3-legged meets the antenna setbacks in the 3 sections and the 3-sector setup to allow for propagation. So turning it may impact, turning the faces may impact the RF. And that the applicant is indicated they are willing to take another look at reorienting the 3-legged layout. That nonsense is everything that we kind of talked about in a nutshell. So I'm looking for a motion from somebody.
I actually had one other question first.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. No, going back to the landscape plan. There's some plain circles in the area outside of the intended landscape area. I take it those are existing trees that'll be retained. Is that correct? Am I
Let's see.
the round circles, all these round
No,
circles?
those are proposed. I think they're proposed.
It's just bark mulch around trees. These are all the proposed
The
ones.
idea that those are to densify the understory of those areas. So to miss the trees that are there and to densify those areas.
So they are proposed, Jesse. Right.
So those are proposed, those aren't existing trees that would be saved.
Those are proposed.
And what kind of trees are they? Because it doesn't say anything. VCs?
What does it say? What does that say?
Yeah, you gotta look at the landscape.
does.
Day 5.
I'm looking at the
They're all-
landscape, actually it does say VT, okay.
What is?
For
It's a
VTs.
cranberry bush.
Some of them are bayberries, some are,
Very.
they're all kind of to.
And there's some
Okay.
different ones here, some.
All right, so
MP.
those are things to be
Densify
planted,
them.
they just, so those are small
Plantings
shrubs,
So
shrubs.
they're bushes.
That's right, bushes.
So they're small bushes that are gonna be mulched around apparently. All right, you can continue. Or I guess we want a motion, are we set for a motion?
Just to approve these design review committee comments as meeting minutes for the June 14th meeting for the proposed communication tower and ground equipment at 1044 Route 28 South Yarmouth. Need a motion.
We want to still move that?
So you guys have to do it,
I'll-
not me. Unless you want to change something.
No, I think
No,
it's
no,
good.
to approve or approving these, what you just read?
Yes.
Yes, I'll make a motion to
Okay,
approve.
Chris made a motion. Charlie, you seconded it. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carries unanimously.
And then I just need a motion to adjourn the June 14th Design Review Committee meeting at 5:06.
Do I have such a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Charlie's done. Chris is seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. And
So I will be sending these to
good
you.
luck
Rick.
on your next steps.
Thank you, members of the committee, and thank you,
Yep.
Kathy, but I know you're gonna say something, Kathy, sorry.
I was just gonna say, I will send you these comments, so you'll have them. I'll just
Right.
make sure I completed actual sentences. And then I will forward along. Okay?
Thank you so much. We appreciate your time
Yep.
and your efforts. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye now.